First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for attending this webinar. Scott is going to be our presenter today. Scott's a global marketing and business development professional with over 35 years experience working from early stages up to Fortune companies. His capabilities include project management, product marketing, marketing and technical communications, and business development. He's one of our SCORE mentors that kind of goes back and forth between Arizona and New York, and he will be our presenter today. So if there's any questions, let us know.
All right. Thanks, Kristen.
You're
and
welcome.
welcome everybody. Glad to be here on your Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, it is 103 out here, but it's a dry heat. And one of the things I do recall is that you don't shovel heat. So I'm kind of glad about that. But thanks for joining us today. And I'm Scott Ladin, and it's my pleasure to present today's webinar. And just before we get into the business of the business model canvas, a couple of notes here on SCORE very quickly. We are an organization made up of successful and experienced volunteers. We offer free mentoring. My favorite way of doing that is face-to-face, but these days it's, as we're doing it now, it's in a virtual environment. And we also do it via email where appropriate. SCORE offers a wide variety of workshops, how to start a business, finance and accounting, government contracting, tax strategies, nonprofit, and so many more. So I urge you all to take advantage of the different services that are offered from SCORE, and the mentoring, and many of these resources are also offered free of charge. So with that said, let's do just a quick overview of what's all going to happen this afternoon. In terms of the expectations, I'll spend a few seconds on that. We'll go over the business model canvas as an overview, and then I'll follow it up with a real world example, at which point we'll open up for Q&A. There's a lot to be discussed in that, in the context of the different components of the business model canvas, and it always works best when we do get some interaction with the attendees. And then after we go through the real world example, we'll do a wrap-up Q&A, so that if there are any other questions, we can take those as well. Now, I'll be sending out a PDF of the presentation along with some of the templates and links to the video and the recording. So don't worry if you don't catch every word on every slide, because the materials will be provided. So, all right, so taking it from there, my objective for today for you is to describe a tool and a process for defining a model that reflects the key building blocks of your business. And it's my goal to ensure that when we're done, you'll be able to create a business model canvas for your own business. And it's always good to do that in conjunction with a mentor, SCORE mentor, of course. We're all trained in the business model canvas tool, so I would encourage you to take what you can from today's webinar, but certainly use it as a jumping off point to work with a mentor to develop your own for your business. So the first thing that I wanted to do is to differentiate between a business plan and a business model canvas. So what does a traditional business plan do for you? It enforces disciplined thinking. It reveals risks and opportunities. It shows gaps in any preparedness, and it allows you to communicate with considerable detail. Now, a traditional business plan is normally in the 15 to 35 page range, maybe more. It's very structured, and it has supporting financial components to it. SCORE has a number of templates available should you find the need to do a complete business plan, but there are certainly a plethora of others if you go shopping on Google. But the thing is that a business plan is typically used when you're seeking funding, say from a bank or from an angel investor or an equity investor. And these organizations typically focus on the financials. And the numbers are essential for sure, and we don't sidestep the numbers when we're talking in terms of a business model canvas. but the rigor is more complete when you're working on a specific business plan. So that's what a business plan does, but what it doesn't do, it doesn't help you to understand how you're going to operate your business on a day-to-day basis. And that's where the business model canvas comes in. So the business model canvas describes the rationale for how your organization creates, delivers, and captures value. And this is all about value. Value from your perspective in terms of dollars, values from your customer's perspective in terms of getting what they want, what they need, and having problems solved. It can replace or precede a traditional business plan. And what you discover using the business model canvas can be used to complete your business plan. But the business model does not eliminate the need for good basic research, and we'll talk a little bit about that. It has 9 blocks, as you can see here, and it's a great visual representation of the relationships among the various building blocks of your business. And while it may look simple on the surface, trust me, it's not. There's a good deal of rigor that goes into thinking this through. But at the end of the day, you'll have a really good, solid understanding of how to create, deliver, and capture value from your business. Most importantly, it allows you to uncover and act on what we call the value propositions your customers are expecting. And again, we'll dig into that a little bit. But it can also identify gaps in your strategy and your knowledge, and it allows you to uncover and save time on things that perhaps may eventually cause problems before you spend time and money and your energy on these things. But it's also a living document. It's not a one-time and done event. It's something where you can add or remove customer segments as you learn more about your business. You can find and identify how markets are changing, and you can react accordingly. And you can expand your services or your products to reflect the changes in your customers or in your markets, and so on. Because things change on a persistent basis, and you're going to get new competitors and you're going to find new challenges, it's a good practice to revisit the business model every 6 months or perhaps even a year, once a year. So let's look at the business model canvas in terms of the different building blocks. As you see, there's 3 different colored areas. One area is where you create value. Another area is where you deliver that value. And the third area is where you capture that value. So if we look at the purple side here, we're talking about what goes on outside of your business. It focuses on the customer and what you do to meet customers' needs and wants, and how you solve their problems and how you engage with them. And the solutions to these needs and wants and their problems are what we call the value propositions. It's the value that the customer gains from engaging, working, buying, doing what they do with you. It's so important at this point to firmly understand the customer segments and the value propositions from the beginning, because everything else that you do is going to depend on having a good solid foundation in the value propositions and the customer segments. Now when we go to the left side, we're talking about what goes on outside the business. So this is where we focus on how you do your business and what you need to do your business. Specifically, the important resources and the people will execute on your value propositions. And then when we get down to the bottom section here, we're really focusing on your business's financials, funding and controlling costs and expenses, and how you're going to be generating income, so you can profitably capture the value from your business. So again, just to kind of summarize this chart, the 3 things we're addressing with this tool is how do we create value, how do we deliver that value, and how do we capture that value. And in terms of a business, that capturing is a dollars and cents scenario. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a short video that expresses how the business model canvas works. And then after the video, we'll walk through each of those blocks individually. But I want you to try to keep in mind and capture from the video the interrelationship among the different components of the business model canvas. So just give me a second here to change direction. and we'll get this going. All right, you should be seeing the video now.
This is the business model canvas. It's just what Beth and Carl will need to craft a powerful business model, and it can do the same for you. Let's dive in and see how it works. There are 9 essential building blocks that make up any business. When you get all 9 blocks working together, you'll have answered the fundamental questions any business model must solve. We'll start here with customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. Channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the types of relationships you're establishing with your customers and how you're acquiring and retaining them. Pricing mechanisms through which your business model captures value are documented under revenue streams. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model, so you can describe the infrastructure you need to create, deliver, and capture value. The key activities show which things you need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. Any business model can be mapped this way: 9 building blocks working to reinforce and strengthen each other. But before you make a model for yourself, it helps to see what a breakthrough business model looks like in action, like this one. Low-cost airlines revolutionized air travel thanks to their disruptive business model. Let's first look at their value proposition. A low-cost airline offers ultra-cheap flights to their main customer segment, budget travelers, by adopting a no-frills policy. And this leads to additional revenue streams because customers pay for their ticket and additional fees on items like food and drink, priority boarding, and luggage. The airlines save even more money through their choice of channels, selling only through call centers and the internet, making for efficient, if not always convenient, customer relationships that are automated and often impersonal. Okay, that covers the right side of the canvas, the part everyone can see. The left side of the canvas is what's going on backstage. Like their choice of key resources, they reduce maintenance and training costs by using a single aircraft model for the whole fleet. And they only fly to cheap airports where it's cost efficient to land, or where they even get paid to touch down. Planes that do land have quick turnarounds, so they get back in the air earning money as quickly as possible. And they form key partnerships with others in the travel industry, like car rental, hotel, and insurance companies. Finally, under cost structures, all maintenance, training, airport, and call center costs are trimmed to their lowest levels. All of these pieces working together make their fares almost impossible for traditional airlines to compete with. There's nothing superior about these airlines except their business models. They're reaching an entirely new segment of travelers out of reach for traditional airlines. Cutting out costs is pretty exciting, right? But wait, just because it's successful for discount airlines doesn't mean it will work for your idea. Luckily, the business model canvas allows you to iterate many models and test them quickly. Let's get started with your own business idea.
Okay, let's get back to the presentation. Okay, everybody's seeing the slides at this point, I think? Okay, good. All right. All right, so we're going to go through each of those individual blocks one at a time. I'll talk you through a real world example reflected by a cleaning service, something we're all familiar with. But I'll pause between each block and allow folks to jump in with a question, raise your hand, and our monitors will open the mic so that you can speak, or you can key in your question in the chat or in the Q&A block. So let's start off with the value propositions. This is, I think, one of the more challenging concepts for clients to grasp. It's somewhat vague, but essentially it's somewhat vague in that it's new to many people. It's a new phrase. It's a new concept. So it's a little hard to grasp sometimes. But as I said before, it's really important to understand what the value propositions are and to whom those value propositions are meaningful. So as I said, it's sometimes easier to start with the value propositions, but it's also reasonable to identify who you're helping and who your customer segments are, and then kind of define what their needs are. Either way, the point is here that you're going to focus on your customer. And so in terms of our cleaning service, what are the values that these customers are going to derive from a cleaning service, right? So it's a time savings tool. It's a way of disinfecting the property or the home or the business. It's a way to create a clean and orderly appearance. And in certain situations, it can be an emergency remediation source. So in the event of a flood or a fire. The key here is understanding your customers' problems, their needs and their wants, because these words that you're going to choose to reflect the value propositions are the words that your customers may use for a Google search to try to find something to solve their problem. And they may be used in your website to establish credibility with the search engines. So, if cleaning service was the value proposition, time savings for cleaning, or create a clean and orderly appearance was the words I would use in Google, I would want to see your website come up as being relevant in that context. So let me stop for a moment and just see if there are some questions about the constructs around value proposition. So what are the customer's problems that you're helping to solve? What are the needs and wants? And what are the bundles of products and services that you would be offering? So let me stop for a second and see if there's any questions. We all good? No questions?
No questions.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's talk about the customers, right? This is who you help. So certainly a cleaning service can have a variety of customers, but which are the most important? For example, which represent the greatest income with the least cost? So for our cleaning services, our customer segments would be residences, and there's different types. So a working adult home, a retirement home, or a retired folks home. Elderly, commercial businesses might include office suites, manufacturers, retailers, and healthcare providers, private practices, hospitals, and nursing homes. So customer segments can be defined by consumers or businesses as we've done here, but you can also define your customer segments by geography, for example, zip codes or towns, or by business types. So we list private practices here, but of course there's a variety of private practices out there. Could be a chiropractor, could be a dentist office, and so on. The key here is that the more you know about your customers, the better you can target your value propositions. And the more targeted you can be, the more cost effective your marketing programs are going to be. So in addition to identifying these broad or macro views of customers, you can also do your library research and say, well, within zip code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are X number of thousand residences with disposable incomes at a certain level, with X number of children in them. So drilling down into the demographics of your customers really helps you to target your messaging, your services, your pricing, your marketing, all of that. So it's really important here to drill down and try to be as focused and do the rigor, do the research that you need to be sure that you understand what your customers are all about and how to target your value propositions to those customers. In fact, it may help to have different canvases for different customer segments. In this case, we could have 3 different business model canvases depending upon the demographics in each of these 3 areas. And this helps you to really get targeted and really get focused on addressing your customers. So again, let me pause and see if there are any questions. Again, tying together customer segments and value propositions is the foundation for this tool.
Hi, Scott. This is Kristen. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
They're having trouble seeing Rachel, the interpreter, a little bit.
There you go.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not in my normal location today. I apologize about that.
That's
It
okay.
wasn't clear. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Is
Any
that better?
questions,
Everybody good?
comments,
It
questions?
looks like, nope, there's nothing, Scott.
Okay, good, good.
All right. Thank you.
Hopefully folks are seeing me and hearing me. Okay, moving along. So the next block talks about our channels to market, right? And so what we mean by channels is how do customers find you and how do you find them? And your goal is to be where your customers are. And you need to consider every possible touch point. So the questions we ask is, how do you reach them? Through which channels can they be reached? Which ones work best? Which ones are most cost effective? And how do they integrate with customer routines? So let's talk about the cleaning service for a minute. So referrals, website, telephone contact, that might be inbound or outbound, print advertising, social media, business location. So any of these can be the kinds of channels that a cleaning service would take advantage of to engage with their customers. It's important to understand which of these can be the most productive. You know, using social media and a website is likely to be less expensive than having a storefront or buying print or other media advertising. And a website for scheduling can be more convenient than having customers call, quote unquote, during normal business hours. So when I talk about integrating with customer routines, if a client has to call between 8 and 5, but they're working full time and they can't get to you, it's a whole lot more convenient when they get home, put the kids to bed, to log on to or go to your website and schedule an appointment or schedule a meeting and so on. So that's my point about how do things integrate, how do your channels integrate with customers' routines. If referrals are important in a cleaning business, for example, you might offer an incentive to make recommendations, such that, you know, something like if I use the cleaning service and I refer someone, I get, you know, $5 off on my next service, something to that effect. Some other examples of the channels that might show up in a business are manufacturers who sell through middlemen, or the local pastry shop that uses Google My Business to connect with nearby customers. So thoughts, comments, questions? I thought I saw something pop up in chat. Nope, we're good?
Nope, we're good.
All right. Hope you guys are not sleeping out there.
Mhm.
All right, so now we go on to customer relationships, right? So this is about how you interact with your customers and how you create sustainable relationships. That is, relationships that you can benefit from over a continued period of time, right? So for example, our residential customers may be transactional. That is, they pay on a per visit basis. Your business customers may have long-term contracts. Your customer service representatives certainly are creating a relationship. One-to-one during engagement. So the folks that are out there actually doing the cleaning are engaging with the customer during the course of that event. Your web content is another way of building the relationship. So the point is, you don't want to forget that anyone or anything who interacts with your customers is creating some kind of a relationship, right? From the representatives who sign up customers, to the individuals who provide the service, to the content and the user interface on your website. Some other examples of relationships might be subscriptions, memberships, blog followers, email newsletters. Every customer touch point establishes a relationship and an opportunity to create the value. So Questions you want to ask is, what types of relationships does each customer segment expect? And how do we maintain that relationship? Which ones have we established? Which ones do we need to establish? And how are they integrated with the rest of our business? So, questions on customer relationships and touch points.
Right now, there's no questions, but there's a comment that the information is very helpful.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Good. All right, let's continue on, and hopefully more of information will give you the same value. All right, so let's talk about key activities. So we've completed the section now that talks about creating value. Now we want to look at that section that talks about how do we deliver the value that's expressed by your value propositions, starting with your key activities. So we look at our cleaning service again, and what are some of the things that the cleaning service might do on a day-to-day basis? Well, record keeping for sure. We want to make sure that we're keeping track of all of our financials as well as our relationships with our customers. We're working with the customers either via telephone or online scheduling, for example. We're engaging with our contractors, our employees for hiring and scheduling. And we're managing equipment and inventory and supplies, right? Buying, stocking, distributing, and maintenance. So if you think about what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis, consider how these relate to the other activities. So how do your activities relate to your distribution channels? How do they relate to your customer relationships, your resources and partners, and your costs and your revenue streams, right? So in terms of customer relationships, one of your activities that I haven't listed here might be writing a blog, right? In terms of your resources and partners, one of your activities might be processing orders or invoices with your suppliers. We talk about relationships. How about updating and maintaining your website as another potential activity? So all of these things need to be considered with respect to the other blocks in the in the business model canvas. So these are the key activities that you need to think about to start delivering the value. So questions, comments?
I have a quick comment because we're having trouble seeing the interpreter. So I'm not sure if we need to unmute the interpreter to make sure that their screen pops up or not.
Okay, I'll pause. Why don't you do what you need to do?
Scott, there is a question about how might you use this business canvas model for an NGO?
Great question. I'm going to characterize an NGO as a nonprofit, if I'm allowed to do that. And if you'll hold your question to the very end, I'm going to show you a mission model canvas that's reflective of the nonprofit world.
We're still having trouble seeing the interpreters.
Byron, can you pop up? I'm not sure if it's my video they can't see or the lighting.
I'm seeing Rachel. I wasn't seeing Byron. Now I'm seeing Rachel.
I think this is a Zoom thing, maybe.
Oh, I'm wondering, Byron's saying perhaps hit gallery view, because if right now it's in speaker view, and so whoever's talking, that's the video that will pop up. But if gallery view is on, then the deaf people should be able to see the interpreters as well. I'm not sure if that helps at all. He's telling the deaf individuals, but I hope it does.
Okay, we'll write that in the comments. Thank you. We'll try to work this out.
Thank you, Kristen. Sorry about that, everyone.
Appreciate everybody's
Should have
help.
gone home.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully that question regarding the NGO, my answer was sufficient. Just if you can be patient, we'll look at it from the other perspective when we get towards the end of the deck here. Okay. No other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. So continuing on in terms of how we're going to deliver value, no business stands alone. right? So it needs resources to function. And it's independent and it's dependent upon the resources to start, run, and grow the business. And again, you have to consider all of the other building blocks in terms of what is needed. So for example, what's needed to engage and manage a distribution channel? What's needed to start and maintain a customer relationship? What's needed to support and engage and act with resources and partners? What's needed to manage costs, and what's needed to manage and deliver revenue streams? So when we talk about our key resources in our cleaning service, we're talking about the employees, whether they're direct hires or contractors, the trucks, the cleaning machines, the chemicals and the cleaning agents, the protective personal equipment, business software, for example, QuickBooks, or a PayPal app or anything like that. And of course, the internet, right, to provide the connectivity that might be needed. Other examples of key resources might be an email marketing platform like MailChimp or Constant Contact. A bank line of credit might also be a key resource for periodic cash flow support. So I'm sure you guys can think of a number of other resources that any business would need. But in terms of setting up some examples here for our cleaning service, these were the things that came top of mind to me. So again, let me pause and see if there's any questions and comments. Okay, cool.
Nope, so far so good.
So far, so good. All right, so again, no business stands alone, and so we need people to help out with it as well. So it's essential to anticipate where and who and how we're going to get support from. And so when we consider the cleaning service, we're talking about our contractors, we're talking about suppliers, web developers, social media experts, lawyers and accountants, and mechanics. Insurance agents would be another one that I would add to this list, right? We talked about bankers earlier. So bankers would be another example. Affiliate marketing organizations, depending upon what your line of business is. Professional associations as well. I had a conversation with a client yesterday who specializes in a healthcare area. And we went out and we looked at her relevant association, business association. And there were all kinds of opportunities for her to, as you might expect, write newsletters, attend conferences, research information was available. So those are the kinds of organizations that any business should reach out to. Professional associations are part of mainstream America, I think, at this point. So the questions you want to ask is who? Who are your key partners? Who are your suppliers? What key resources do we get from our partners? Which key activities do our partners perform? So pause for a moment, see if there's some questions on partners, people who help us do our business.
No questions for partners just yet, but there was a second question about a nonprofit.
Okay.
So I just shared with them that you would be sharing a mission-driven business canvas towards the end.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, wait, Art Roberts does have a question. For a larger business that has a few different market segments, should they use a separate business canvas for each segment? Some customers may cross segments.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the business model canvas, right? It's extremely flexible. So you can certainly do cross products, cross markets, cross segments. The key, I think, to all of that is the targeting. So if you identify a different market, and let's just say for the sake of example, that you wanted to target a male demographic as opposed to a female demographic, I would most certainly recommend doing a separate business model canvas, because the value propositions are going to change. The attributes of the customers are going to change. Their needs, their wants, their problems that they're solving are going to be different. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that differently. And I'll show you an interesting example of a business model canvas that I got from a client that had multiple markets, multiple customer segments when we get to the end. It's pretty interesting.
Great, thank you. And
Yep.
I think that's everything for right now.
Okay. All right. So we've done our work here on understanding how to create and how to deliver value. So now the next step is understanding how do we actually capture that value. And because this is not a not-for-profit business, capturing that value means earning some money and being profitable. And so ultimately our goal here is to monetize all of this good work that we're doing. So you want to begin by understanding what it will cost to start a business, and then what it's going to take to operate that business and run and grow the business. I often tell clients that don't spend a nickel of your money, don't borrow anything until you have spent the time to fully understand what your startup costs are going to be. It's not a lot of fun to jump in the deep end when you can't see the bottom. So I often tell clients to spend time and energy researching and fully understanding what it's going to cost to start the business, and then to develop a cash flow view of a year or 2 years to understand what the sales opportunities might be. And so that's how this kind of ties together. We've got a great set of tools at SCORE to help do this kind of analysis. So if we were to start a cleaning service business, right? What do we have to invest in? Well, we have to invest in vehicles and equipment and supplies. To operate the business, we have payroll, insurance, fuel, supplies, rent, equipment, vehicles, and vehicles, and so on. Other things that you might consider if you were opening up some kind of a retail or a salon, you have a build out, right? So you have to outfit the facility to reflect the services that you're going to be providing, whatever that might be. So understanding these two parts of the business are critical. It's part of the rigor that's perhaps not fully anticipated when you first look at the simplicity of the model. But when you work with a mentor and we help you through the process, we'll get you to the point where you do understand what your initial and operating cost structures might look like. So questions, comments?
No, the queue is clear.
All right. All right. So this is often the most nebulous part of doing a business model, any business model. I don't care if you're doing a business plan or a business model canvas. Revenue streams, projecting revenue streams are very, very difficult, particularly at the outset, because you don't know how your customer is going to react. You don't know how the markets are going to be. You don't know how your competition is going to respond. But you need to start somewhere. And so the projections need to be done early on. And then you can review them, say, on a quarterly basis to prove or disprove your assumptions. And that's why I was referring earlier to this being a living document, right? Because you're going to make assumptions, and you're going to test those assumptions as you go forward. And you're going to adjust your cash flow and your net income statements to reflect the new information that you're getting in real time. That's why record keeping is so critical to any business, so that you have the data that you need to assess where your business is coming from and going to. So some of the questions that you're going to ask is, initially, you're going to make an assumption about what your customers are willing to pay. What do they currently pay for other services? You know, if you're opening up a coffee shop and there's a Starbucks down the street, do you want to undercharge, charge a value under the Starbucks brand to bring in some traffic? Do you want to meet the competition's price? How do customers pay? Are you going to do PayPal? Are you going to do Square? Right? And now you have a partner and a resource that you need to reach out to. How do customers prefer to pay? These days, customers prefer a non-touch environment. So a place where they can, or a tool that allows them to just insert their credit card without handing it over. How much does each sales stream contribute to overall revenue? And so what we're talking about here now is the concept of profitability, right? So the difference between the profitability and the more value you deliver, the more customers may be willing to pay, the stronger your relationships are going to be, and the greater your profitability will be. So when we think about our cleaning service, right, we have potential payment streams of transactions. So if you're doing residential services, dollars per hour, or perhaps dollars per engagement. You may go out to a particular home and quote, say, you know, it's going to take 2 hours to clean this house, and then you'll charge accordingly. You may set up a contract with with a business based on the number of engagements. You may discount your hourly rate because they give you a guarantee of a certain number of engagements. They may give you a certain number of locations, right? It may be seasonal. Come the holiday season, they may want you to come in and do a pre-season cleaning and a post-season cleaning. There may be, given current times, opportunities to come in and do a specialized disinfecting of the facility. So you need to think through what your revenue streams are going to look like in terms of the value propositions that you're delivering to the customer segments that you've identified. So it all plays together. Everything is interrelated one with the other. Some other examples of revenue streams that you might think of are subscription and membership fees, online product sales. So if I'm a cleaning service, for example, I may want to offer for sale one of the chemicals that I use because it's got a particular fragrance that the customer likes, because it's anti-allergenic, you know, whatever it might be. Affiliate marketing incentives. So this is an e-commerce web type application for marketing where businesses share to some degree revenues one to the other when recommendations are made. And I'm sure you can think of many other sources of revenue that a business might see depending upon the business. So let me pause again, see if there's any questions on revenue streams.
We don't have a question on revenue streams, but we do have a question from Gary Einhaus. He says, one key element of a successful business is how you differentiate from others, offering similar products or services. And he was just wondering, how is that captured on the business model canvas?
Here you go, Gary. Right? One last thought. The typical business model canvas does not identify competition. I do. And so with all of that said, you're absolutely right. We don't want to lose sight of the competition, and we want to understand how we must and can continually differentiate the business. And it's a continuous process of research, adjusting and communicating. Not unusual in the retail world to have someone shop the competition, right? Great way of understanding what the competition is doing. In the case of our cleaning service, we have two different kinds of competition, right? One is the direct competition. So there may be another cleaning service down the street, around the corner, offering the same service in the same geographic area. But there's also indirect competition. So a cleaning machine rental or a home carpet cleaner tool that you might rent from a big box store. Those are a couple of different views on competition, direct and indirect. But Gary, it's a great question, and analyzing and responding to competition is a subject all by itself. And you can start with what I refer to as what the industry refers to as your unique selling proposition, your USP. In general, right, a good USP will be quantifiable. It will be unique and not claimed by a competitor. It will not be a cliche, and it will be objective, not subjective. Some simple guidelines, if you will, and these can help you establish and communicate how you do better, cheaper, and faster than anyone else. Did I hit your question? Did I take care of Gary's question there?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, all right, good. Great timing on that. I really appreciated that.
Oh, We've got another question from Jim Stefano.
Hey,
How
Jim,
would
how
you
are
how would you use the Canvas to integrate a new business into an existing 40-plus-year-old business? The new business offers higher level services and within the same industry.
Right. So, we use the term gap analysis when we do something like that. So at the macro level, at the 50,000 foot level, you might use this tool to reflect what the current business is doing. And then you might use the tool to reflect what you anticipate the new business is going to do. So how will the customers be different? What will the products and services be that are different? How will the value propositions become different? And it's those gaps, those differentials that perhaps then create the third business model canvas that reflects how you fill the gaps. So you have what the current business is doing, what the vision of the next business is doing, and what you need to fill the gaps. That would be my high level take on that.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, so here's an example, as I mentioned earlier, of one of my clients who had 4 different customer segments, 4 different markets essentially. So she laid it out on a piece of cardboard, big piece of cardboard. Some people will also use a whiteboard. And then you use Post-it notes to reflect the different segments. So as you can see at the top, there's an orange one, and then there's an orange one in every other box that's out there. Same thing with the blue and the green and the yellow. So it's a really good tool to help visualize. And the use of Post-it notes is helpful, I think, because, like most of us, you wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with one of those aha experiences. And if you can write it down on a green Post-it note because it's relevant to a particular targeted customer, you've saved it and you go over to your business model canvas the next day and you update it. The other thing that you can do with this is once you've got it laid out in these colors, now you create 4 different business models and you expand on that and continue drilling down. Hence the concept of being a living document. So I love this. I love the way this particular client took advantage of that opportunity. Now, to the question about the NGO. And I'm not going to go into detail on this at this point, but I wanted to let anyone know who might be involved with a nonprofit organization that there is an approach to take. But as you can see, there are some variants. So in terms of customer segments, we refer to stakeholders, right? Who are the people who are can be invested, have some degree of investment, and I don't necessarily mean financial, perhaps emotional or social investment in the organization. So these are stakeholders, right? And then there's different categories and so on. So my recommendation is if you are a nonprofit, that you work with a SCORE mentor, and we have several that are specialists in nonprofits, and begin to do the rigor that we were just talking about in each of these boxes to work through the detail and come up with a perspective on how to operate that not-for-profit organization. So I hope that helps that particular individual, gives them some insight into what we're doing. And this will be included in the deck that I send out. So that is the completion of our webinar. You'll be receiving a link to a survey when I send out the deck. So please do take a few minutes to complete the survey. All the feedback is absolutely necessary and most helpful to continue to make this a better webinar each time we do it. Don't forget to request free mentoring. Because everything is virtual now, it doesn't matter that I'm sitting out here in Phoenix in 103 degrees. I'm happy to mentor anyone sitting back east, whether you've got an inch or 2 of snow or not. It's all the same to me. So please do reach out if you would like some mentoring, and I'll open up for any wrap-up questions that anyone might have. And just to spur your thinking, here's a summary of all of the boxes that we talked about.
We don't have a question, but we do have a comment that says, it was a great webinar. Thank you for the helpful information. And they can't wait to get started on their business model canvas.
Very cool. Hopefully there's a mentor involved in that process.
And we have another comment, a question. Joyce was asking about finding synergies. Are you looking for synergies when you're filling out this business model canvas, which would be activities that could be used with several different segments?
No question about it. In fact, let me back up to this other one. If you look in the left side there, you'll see a little yellow square, right? That represents a synergy among the 4 different segments, right? So most definitely, you should identify where you can be cost effective, operationally effective, or efficient across segments.
Okay. And also Bill Valley is asking what is the best way to vet a prospective partner?
Well, yes, there's such a lot of, that's a big question, right? To vet a partner. So it depends on what it is that partner is going to be doing for you. So I would start with having a clear understanding of what you want that partner to do. So if you are, for example, building a website and you reach out to a web developer, you should have some kind of a documented specification as to what that website should do. Similarly, if you're reaching out to a partner to build a widget, you should have some kind of a document that describes what that widget would do. And in both of those cases, you should be looking at not just one partner for that particular support, but at least 2 to 3, right, to get quotes. And in each of those dialogues, you'll get more information. So, starting with a clear document that describes what it is you want to accomplish with the partner is the way to go. And so, when you reach out to a partner, you would request quotes, you might request statements of work, you might request examples of contracts, that sort of thing. And again, compare multiples.
Great, thank you. Looks like we've got everybody. Oh, wait 1 second. Yes, it looks like we got all the questions answered. We did want to say thank you to you, Scott, for a great presentation. There's a lot of comments coming in saying it was a great presentation. The information was very helpful.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time today.
And thank you to everybody who attended. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Scott. His contact information is in the deck, or to reach out to your local SCORE chapter and request a mentor to help you through this business model canvas. Thank you for attending, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.